Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the National Bleav Network, presented by FanDuel. Great to have FanDuel aboard. And joining me to look at a key Rockets competitor out west is Gabe Anderson, who hosts Running with the Timberwolves in our Bleav Network. And it's great to have you, Gabe. And can we get a thank you for wearing out Steph Curry's hamstring for you guys?
Yeah, no, we really do appreciate it. It was looking pretty bleak in game one, but I mean, that completely changed that series to a monumental degree. And that series wasn't the same after Steph Curry went down. But yeah, thanks for going 7 with him. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Wish we could have pulled that one out and played you guys in the second round. We got to talk about.
Actually, I was rooting for that. That's what I want. The 2 reasons. One, Curry always scares me. That was the first thing. The second thing, I just think that would have been a fun matchup between 2 young up-and-coming teams. I was really hoping for. I think that series goes kind of like your first round series. I think that goes 6 or 7 for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say we're going to talk about the potential T-Wolves versus Rockets stuff and just a little bit later in the show. But I know you guys, the fan base there, has got to be excited about finally getting rid of Glen Taylor. Bad ownership just kills you. And what does this mean for the fans of the Wolves right now?
Well, first, let me give Glen Taylor his due. He did a couple things here in Minnesota. One, he kept the team in Minnesota. That was big. He had an opportunity in the 90s to sell the team and move it when the NBA wanted to. He didn't do that. 2, and maybe this isn't really about the T-Wolves here, but he did help facilitate a great team in the Lynx who dominated the 2000s or the 2010s in the WNBA. Those are the 2 things he did do. What he didn't do, the Joe Smith thing, hiring David Kahn. Oh, man, where do we begin? Not building around Kevin Garnett. And the other thing that I will say that he did do is he was willing, at least initially, to kind of mentor A-Rod and Lauri. Remember, they signed the deal in 2022, and the deal was we'll kind of be part owners for a little and teach you kind of how to do this. But then, obviously, it turned sour. He wanted to go back on the deal when he realized that the deal was worth way more to him. And so that will definitely spoil Wolves fans' opinion of him. They couldn't wait for him to go. But yes, we are super excited for A-Rod and Lauri, fresh blood in the owner's box. Big ideas. The hiring of Tim Connolly was huge. All he's done since he's been here is just go for it. He went for it with Rudy Gobert. He went for it with trading Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, it's crazy the big moves that Tim Connolly has done since coming here from the Nuggets. So, no, we're excited. We could have a new arena that's really needed here. I mean, they did some renovations to Target Center, but we really do need a new arena here soon. So they're bringing back jerseys that Wolves fans love. They're bringing back the Prince jerseys and the Black Tree jerseys. I mean, people are excited here in Minnesota to finally get rid of Glen Taylor. It just feels like a fresh new start for this team that struggled for so long.
Yeah, you and I were talking before we started about my friend that works up there and does a lot of stuff for the sports teams. And, he said, there's an element of cheapness to David Kahn that a lot of fans might still not have an understanding from, but he knows from doing stuff behind the scenes. And you mentioned, somebody like David Kahn and that hiring. And I'll just never forget, even at the time, I was looking at the draft and I was like, wait a second, you guys drafted Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn before Steph Curry? What?
Yeah. I mean, Ricky Rubio, I almost understand because, I mean, he was supposed to be this one-of-a-kind talent, but the Johnny Flynn one still scratches heads to this day. In fact, there's something going around Twitter that what's a moment that Wolves fans know with no context? The picture of the draft board of Rubio and then Flynn and then Curry is going around like wildfire. So, yeah, I mean, that was a huge mistake. So many mistakes along the way. And like you said, fresh blood in Minnesota is always a good thing.
What did you hear about the potential Durant trade to Minnesota. What was the offer to the Suns? And would the Suns have taken Minnesota's offer if the Wolves were willing to roll the dice on KD not re-signing beyond this year?
Well, here's the thing. I think that it was all the Suns that didn't make this happen. From what I hear, they were ready to trade Rudy, Dante, and then either Dillingham or Terrence Shannon Jr. To be honest with you, I would rather have Terrence Shannon Jr. at this point than Dillingham, which we'll get into. I have some worries about Dillingham. But from what I understand, Durant, didn't want to be here. Didn't think that the team would, like you were mentioning, give him a extended contract, which you guys did, even though it's been very clear from last year's playoffs and reading Ant's autobiography and all the stuff around him, KD is his hero. Like, KD is the guy that he grew up watching and emulating his game around. So it felt like a perfect fit. I just think that at the end of the day, Durant didn't want to be here, didn't want to, I think, be in a cold climate, as weird as that sounds for an NBA player who can, on a second, fly in a private jet to Miami. I think he wanted somewhere else to go, and I just don't think that it was the right fit for him. And honestly, I'm happy that you guys got him, but I don't want a player who doesn't want to be here, particularly an old player on the way out, on the tail end of his career. And yeah, I think it didn't work out.
By the terms of the trade, you were good with getting KD. The fan base was good. They were excited about that.
There were some people that had reservations. I mean, Rudy Gobert is also on the tail end, so they didn't mind giving up Rudy, particularly when we have Naz Reid in the reins. I think that overall, yes, the team was ready. They were excited to have a Randle, Edwards, Durant-led team. I think it was the moves, like we were mentioning with Glen Taylor, the moves that Glen Taylor didn't make back in the day. It was almost like, okay, now we're going to make the moves now to bring in a generational talent in Kevin Durant. So yes, I think fans were definitely willing. Particularly, you didn't have to give up Naz Reid. Dante DiVincenzo struggled greatly last season, particularly in the playoffs. So yes, I think fans were ready to welcome in KD.
Was there anything the Wolves did or didn't do against OKC that frustrated you or had the fan base a little peeved?
When we talked about this actually on last podcast, me and my co-host Chris Emerson, but last year we went into the Western Conference Finals against Dallas and we felt like, hey, we got a shot at this. And the first two games were super close. We really could have gone either way. We had leads late in the fourth quarter. We just couldn't finish. I think we went into this one, particularly with the Curry injury, thinking, oh man, I don't know. Like, we're going to give them a fight, but OKC, like what the Celtics were the year before, just a dominant team, and they really showed that. What we could have done differently, I think, is just come out of halftime better. In the third quarter, in games 1 and 2, the Wolves were outscored 67-39 in the third quarter. Game 4 in Minnesota, we really had to have, but we just couldn't get it done. Too much Shea, too much Jalen Williams, too much Chet Holmgren, and the supporting cast. If we had a shot to beat OKC, you can't shoot 33% from three. So that's what really was our downfall, not taking care of the third quarter and then not shooting, which honestly, if you look at the stats, we didn't shoot well from three, basically the entire playoffs. We had stretches where we did, but overall not too great.
Now, if you look at the Western Conference Championship odds right now, our friends at FanDuel have OKC as the big favorite, no surprise, plus 140. But after that is where it gets interesting, and this is what I want to hit you with. The Rockets and Nuggets tied at plus 500. The Lakers and Wolves next, tied at plus 1,000. Do you agree with where they have the Rockets, Nuggets, Lakers, and Timberwolves right now?
Yeah, because honestly, I think it's a crapshoot of who's going to take what. I mean, you look at the Wolves last year, they are one game out of the play-in, right? Like, they were the 6th seed. If they lose, for example, talking about the OKC Thunder, we had a game earlier this year against OKC where we came back from 25 points down in the fourth quarter. If that something crazy doesn't happen and we don't do that, we're in the play-in and we're scrapping to even play OKC in the first round. So that's the thing. It's so hard to quantify who's going to step out on top when injuries happen. There's a lot of old players. You got LeBron, who's old, Curry, who's old, even like you're mentioning, Durant, who's old as well. So, I mean, the Wolves could be a 3 seed next year. They could be the 7 seed. The Rockets could be a 3 seed. They could be a 7 seed. The West is crazy. Like, it's the most crazy I have ever seen a conference. If the Wolves were in the East, yes, absolutely. Top 4 seed, easy. Although we did struggle against Eastern Conference teams for some reason, and we have for the last couple years. But, man, I think it could go either way. I like you're mentioning, I do think OKC is in a tier above everybody. Now, that can go the wrong way as well. Like we saw with Boston last year. Everyone thought, okay, Boston's going to win the next 2 or 3. They get some injuries. It doesn't go their way. They have to blow up the whole team. I don't think that's what's going to happen with OKC, but I do think right now they're on a tier above everybody in the West.
And I'm trying to figure out where I would actually put my money if I was betting on FanDuel. I wouldn't go homer on the Rockets. If I'm throwing down I would put a couple bucks best value on the Nuggets while I Bleav in OKC. Yeah. Of course, there's not much value there. So the Nuggets to me are the one team that makes the most sense.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The Nuggets, to their credit, got a lot better this offseason, to their credit. And I mean, it sounds like I've heard that once Jokic is done with his current contract, he may just retire. So they're seeing that the onus is on them to win now. So they had a great offseason. There's so many teams that were aggressive and tried to get better in this offseason. So I mean, like I said, any of these teams could be the 3 seed, 2 seed. Any of these teams could be the 8 seed. So it's going to be a crazy Western Conference once again.
Like I said earlier, we're going to hit on the Rockets-T-Wolves matchup. But before we do, how do you listeners feel about where the Timberwolves fit in the West? Let me know in the YouTube comments, and where the Rockets fit in the West for that matter. Look for our YouTube shorts too. I'm posting shorts constantly. So if you need a quick break at work, check them out. And hey, did you miss yesterday's Texans training camp breakdown with Jacob Barzilla? Tap on that. Jacob's doing a hell of a job covering the Texans. Don't forget that the Texans play Saturday. I'm once again doing live post-game shows. We're planning going live at 9 p.m. game days this season. So if you're hanging with friends or at the game, now you can check in to our live chat that night. So if you missed the live chat, of course, you can also check us out in the record. But make sure you're subscribed on YouTube with notifications so you get those updates on the post-game shows. You also want to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. All right, Gabe, Julius Randle signs for 3 years, $100 million. Did you like the Randle contract?
You know, I think he earned it in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, to be honest with you. He was great. He was fantastic. Now, obviously, there's always going to be the asterisk, what if Curry was in the series? But as far as what Randle did in those first 2 rounds, he was everything we wanted him to be. Now, he came in such a tough spot at the beginning of the season, traded to Minnesota 2 days into training camp. This goes for Dante DiVincenzo as well, but obviously not as much usage with him. But he has to come in and replace basically the face of the franchise for the last 10 years on a moment's notice. He struggled early. He got hurt, I Bleav, in January. He got hurt, and he said that he was able to really take a deep breath, look from afar, and see how he fits with this team. And since he came back, he was fantastic. I know Julius is going to be 31, but, 2 years with a player option feels about right for Julius Randle. And the other thing is, compare it to what we would have had to pay Cat. And don't get me wrong, this is not Cat slandering. Cat was great. Cat's a great offensive player. Like he's all NBA and all-star for a reason. But when you compare the things that we can do with that money for Julius Randle compared to Cat, there's a lot of things we can do. And another thing, if Julius Randle doesn't pan out in Minnesota, let's say he has a bad second year, very tradable contract, I think. Very tradable contract to do something else, because what the Wolves have right now is a generational talent in Anthony Edwards that we haven't had in years. In years. And he's just going into his prime. In fact, today is his 24th birthday. So happy birthday, Anthony Edwards. So, I mean, if it doesn't work out with Randle, I feel like it's a very tradable contract. It's not like a max contract. It's about on par when you look at it with the extension he signed with the New York Knicks. And so, yeah, I'm all for it. I think we had a great start to free agency when we found out that Randle was coming back.
The other big contract you guys signed, Reid, 5 years, $125 million. What was the price for Nas? Too high, too low, or just right?
Let me start out by saying, if you want to know something about Minnesota sports, Reid may be the most popular player. I'm not talking about in the Timberwolves organization. He may be the most popular player at times in Minnesota. So there would have been a national day of mourning. Our governor, Tim Walz, would have probably issued a day of mourning if Reid signed with a different team. But you mentioned it, 5 years for 125. I think that seems about right. I do think that he could have gotten more on the open market, maybe not a lot more, but slightly more. It's interesting because he made comments, and maybe these are passing comments, maybe they got overblown, but he made comments saying that he would like to be a starter in the NBA. So that's why we thought he was on the outs. That's why we thought he wasn't going to re-sign with Minnesota, because obviously Rudy Gobert there. Honestly, after those comments and what I've seen in Rudy's contract, there's a chance that Rudy Gobert may be out the door at some point. It seemed like maybe he served his purpose and now he could be on the outs. I don't know for sure, but it's definitely possible. But yeah, I'm on board with Reid, kind of like your guy with the Rockets. Fred VanVleet worked himself out from being an undrafted, basically summer league player, to now being one of the best six men in the entire league. So I'm happy Nas is here for 5 more years. Hopefully it was a good contract. He's an interesting mix of where he can actually, if you watch him, to quote to bring up a Houston great, there's a little Akeem Olajuwon in his game. If you really watch Reid, he does a dream shake here and there. He puts up some hook shots, and I'm like, there's no way that's going in. And it goes in at a pretty frequent rate. He on offense, he's almost like 80% of what Karl Anthony Towns is for almost half the price. So yes, I'm happy with both contracts.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because the Rockets signed Jabari for almost an identical deal that Nas was signed for, and be interesting in a couple of years just to see which one of those contracts looks better.
Right. Yeah. It will be. I like you. I like a lot of your young talent. I know you had to get rid of some in the Kevin Durant trade, but yeah, no, Houston definitely an up and coming team that I love watching.
Is the loss of Alexander Walker a big deal or a little overblown?
Nickeil is another one of those players. He was a throw-in in the Mike Conley trade, basically just a salary filler. Like, we didn't know who he was. The headline was, D'Lo's gone, and we're bringing in Mike Conley, and there's this guy named Nickeil Alexander Walker. When we first got him, we didn't even know if he'd crack the rotation much. But he rebuilt his career here in Minnesota. He's become a fan favorite. He's one of the, if you listen to his post-game pressers, one of the most affluent and well-spoken players in the entire NBA. I think there's either broadcasting or coaching in his career after NBA career if he wants it. But I think the Wolves, as sad as they are to see him go, I think they're confident in Terrence Shannon Jr., who looked awesome in Summer League, only 3 games, and Jalen Clark are enough to fill that 8/9 spot. I think they're happy with that. I think they've seen enough out of Terrence Shannon Jr. I mean, you got to remember, although Terrence Shannon was a rookie last year, I mean, he's older than Anthony Edwards, so he's ready to go. Jalen Clark is an absolute pest, which fits in with the Wolves' DNA, where defensive first. And I think initially there could be some growing pains where Terrence Shannon and Jalen try to find their way into the lineup. But I think overall the Wolves were okay with letting him go. And I'm happy for Nickeil Alexander-Walker turning his career around in Minnesota. I think he's going to do great things. He's going to fit in perfect with the new defensive-minded Atlanta Hawks. He'll play great next to Dyson Daniels as well. So, yeah, it's a loss, but I don't think it's a huge one for the Wolves.
What's Minnesota's biggest weakness at this point after all the offseason moves?
Oh, easy. This is honestly the move they haven't made yet, which I actually made a video on the channel. The move they haven't made yet is address the point guard issue, and that is where we're weak. Now, it's hard saying that we're weak at point guard when you have Mike Conley, who everyone respects. He's like the pros pro, never got a technical, grit and grind Grizzlies, but it's an old Mike Conley. He's the 5th oldest player on the league. He's on the way out. We know it. He knows it. That's why he was so disappointed that the Wolves weren't able to at least make it to the finals last year. A lot around the locker room. A lot of players were saying, "Do it for Mike." They were saying that post-game pressers as well. And then, like I mentioned earlier, with Rob Dillingham, to me, and maybe he has to some fans, but I get the feeling that Rob Dillingham hasn't done enough, whether it is his own faults for turning the ball over or not being able to finish at the rim, whether it's his own fault or it's the fault of a situation where he got drafted in the lottery, but to a team that drafted up, so to a winning team, a contending team. I don't think Coach Finch trusts him yet. And he showed some of the same attributes in Summer League where, man, I don't know if you can give the reins to Rob Dillingham 20-plus minutes a night. And then it'll be interesting to see, does that mean more DiVincenzo at point guard, which he doesn't prefer to play, or do you give Shannon those minutes, even though he would be a bigger point guard? Now, obviously, positionless basketball in today's NBA. But I still think, like I mentioned with the Rudy Gobert contract, there may be something in the works with Malcolm Brogdon's out there, Gary Payton II's out there, even Russell Westbrook's still a possibility, which scares me a little bit. But we'll see if anything like that happens. I don't know if the roster is set in stone at point guard yet, but if we had a weakness, it would definitely be at the 1 right now.
Yeah, it should be extremely interesting because the teammates, Dillingham and Reid Shepherd at Kentucky, it's a big year for both of those guys. So, it should be interesting. And both of them need to do a little bit more of their second year and show that they can stay on the court defensively. It seems like they mirror each other in a lot of ways. Both of them great offensively on paper or on, on virtual video game sets, I guess, or something.
Right.
But
like you were mentioning, Dillingham, he seems like a very street ball kind of player, which is a bad way to put it, but he's definitely elusive. He's got all the handles in the world. The question is, can he turn into a decent defender who doesn't get bodied down low, which will be tough because of his size? And can he take some Chris Paul attributes where he can hit a mid-range shot or kind of facilitate the offense? I'm not saying he's going to be Chris Paul, but some of those attributes.
The Timberwolves won 2 of 3 versus the Rockets this past year. Now the Rockets got their 1 win in that in-season tournament. So maybe that counts as 2 wins. I don't know. According to Adam Silver, maybe it does. That was one of my favorite games of the season, actually, because
that was fun. It
had a kind of a playoff feel. The Rockets, the one Rockets game I did attend this year was the Timberwolves 1-point win when the Rockets blew a 12-point lead in the final 3 minutes and hit that ridiculous falling away 3-pointer to win it. These two teams, they felt pretty even, Gabe. How do you see the matchup overall and after the Kevin Durant deal?
Like you were mentioning, I think it comes down a lot to Kevin Durant and his health at his age. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Kevin Durant is some geriatric player. Like, I'm not saying that he's over the hill. I mean, if you look at his numbers, still, and I'm sure you've gone into it in your show, still like 50% from the field, 40% from 3, still a super just efficient player, which I was going to actually mention with Randle. He's actually super efficient as well, maybe not to that extent. But I think these teams mirror each other a lot. I mean, you got unproven backup point guards, Dillingham and Reid, and maybe not their own faults, maybe just what the teams they were drafted to. Both have all-world perimeter defenders, Amen Thompson and Jaden McDaniels. I love Alfred Şengün. He's actually one of my favorite players to watch. I think he's almost kind of like Rudy. I'm not comparing their post games, but very awkward player to watch. Kind of a bang in the post kind of player, not necessarily the blueprint for a NBA center today, but I do love watching him play. I do know there were a couple games where Jalen Green played very well against us, got hot against us, and I know he struggled in the playoffs, which was probably one of the reasons that you guys were ready to get rid of him for KD. But I think it would be a very interesting matchup. I think the question is, when KD's out of the game or Fred's out of the game or even Şengün's out of the game, your second unit, who's scoring for your guys? Because I don't think it's Josh Okogie. I mean, you're not going to go post up Steven Adams. He's more of a facilitator. So I think it actually questions for us as well. We don't have a lot of guys, particularly with Nickeil gone, who can attack the rim off the bench at least. So I think, like I kind of said earlier, I think if we match up in the playoffs, I think it goes 6 or 7. Couple matchups, a couple bad bounces will decide the series. And I thought that last year as well. And like I mentioned, I think a lot of it has to do with KD's health. I think you guys definitely struggled having a guy who can close games, and KD might be that guy for you. We'll just have to find out. I got to see it in action for the Rockets this season.
Yeah, one of the guys that I think really loves seeing Rudy Gobert is Şengün. I feel like he gets up for that matchup. And so that's helpful for the Rockets. You know, we talked about the game that they blew, the 12-point lead. If you have Kevin Durant to make the big shots, and I was at the game, like I said, watching Jalen Green turn the ball over late in the game and doing other things that were not super helpful for winning that particular game. You know, I think KD really flips the series between these two teams in a lot of ways, you know, like I think he's going to do with other matchups as well, as long as he can stay healthy. Yeah. The other thing about this matchup that's, you know, I feel really interesting is, you know, I love Chris Finch as a coach and Udoka. And if they played in the playoffs, the chess match between those two guys, it'd be real interesting.
It would be a fun matchup. And Chris Finch, I think, has learned a lot. Like, for example, his first playoff series against Memphis, people dogged him time and time again for game 3. I was actually at this game. Game 3, Memphis goes on this huge run, and Chris Finch doesn't take a timeout, doesn't stem the tide at all. And I think he's learned how to do that. Like, for example, against OKC, the game 3 that we actually won in Minnesota, the Wolves were up something like, 20, 25 at half. OKC comes back after halftime, cuts it to 21. And he senses, okay, I need to take a timeout here. I need to stem this tide. Wolves come out, go on like a 10-0 run, put the game away. So like you're mentioning, the chess pieces at play would be very interesting in that series. I like Udoka as well. I think he's a great coach. And yeah, I think it would be a fun playoff series if we saw you guys in the first round, second round, or maybe even the Western Conference Finals. Who knows?
Big picture for the Wolves. FanDuel has them with the 49.5 win total. Okay. What do you think about the number? And do you bet the over or under?
Man, it's hard like I was mentioning earlier, in the Western Conference. It's so hard to determine who's going to go where. I would bet slightly over. I know they had 49 wins last year. I know that, and I know that a lot of Western Conference teams got better. But I just got a feeling that given a whole offseason of connectivity, given a playoff run where you blow past the Lakers, blow past the Warriors, I just got a feeling that I'd say 51 or 52. So just slightly over. I would have them 4, 5, 6 is where I would put the Wolves in the Western Conference. But like I was mentioning, they could be 8, they could be 3, they could be 2. With the Western Conference, with Spurs getting better, so many teams in the mix right now, But I think the Wolves, with their experience and Anthony Edwards going into his prime, I got them slightly over.
If anybody wants to see the Rockets over under, go check FanDuel. Go to the website. You can find all the over unders there. They're all out right now, of course. And, one of the things that's super interesting about this matchup is the connection between the Rockets and Timberwolves over the years. 42 guys, according to my math, have played for both the Rockets and the Wolves. Actually, it's just Basketball References math. I'm too lazy to do that. But my personal favorite of the guys that have played on both teams, Sam Cassell. I know he was beloved with the Timberwolves. The Rockets won 2 rings with him. There's also Gerald Green, who occasionally does Rockets television on their studio crew. But your longtime TV analyst, Gabe, was one of my favorite teams on the Rockets. The 86 Rockets finals team had big man Jim Peterson. And if Rockets fans don't know, Peterson is a Minneapolis native. He played for the Golden Gophers, so all the connections back there, which is why he's back there. So the Twin City native played with the Twin Towers. So you have that little fun fact. And a trivia question for you, Gabe. Do you know Peterson's nickname from back then?
Oh, gosh, I'm trying to remember. I'm sure he said it on the broadcast. I'm almost positive. Was it like the big something? Was it like big blank or no?
Well, the hint is Twin Towers. That's who he played with. He was the answer, the Ivory Tower.
The Ivory Tower. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure they mentioned that on the broadcast at some point. By the way, Jim Pete, fantastic color commentator. I know Michael Grady is taking a little bit of a step back from the Wolves this year to do Prime, and I think he's even on NBC as well, or ESPN or one of them. But yeah, I got to be honest, one of the best color commentators in the entire league. He does an awesome job breaking down he knows the Wolves better than almost anyone in Minnesota. So yeah, Jim Pete, we love having him. He's been here for years. He also does stuff, used to be the Lynx assistant coach, I believe, as well. So I mean, he's all Minnesota Timberwolves here. So we love him here.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to Peterson about the Twin Towers one day. And if the listeners go in our YouTube library, they're going to hear my conversation years ago with Peterson's teammate, Robert Reid. If you're wondering about the demise of the Twin Towers, just listen to this clip of Reid explaining what happened to Ralph, starting with his injury in the 86 finals against Boston.
If we would have had the sports medicine that these young men players have today, Ralph would have been a factor, a tremendous career, and definitely he got into the Collegiate Hall of Fame. But you remember that horrible fall he had at the Garden, and came to find out that part of his hip, just that left side or the right, was an inch off. Then the next year, his knees gave off because of that hip. So now he's got the inch off the hip, his left knee is halfway gone. Then the third year comes the right leg. So no, Ralph was never fully healed to be the player that as rookie of the year that he was his first year. That was the Ralph Sampson everybody knew was supposed to be there 12, 15, maybe 17 years in the NBA and be one of the top leading scorers.
Great stuff. Love Bobby Joe. The rest of that interview is on our Rockets history playlist and a Robert Reid tribute that we did last year after we lost him. It's sad that we've already lost 5 guys from Jim Peterson's 86 team. One of the 5 is another Wolves Rockets connection, Gabe. Minnesota first overall pick Andrew Wiggins' dad, Mitchell, was one of the guys on that team as well.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, we have a complicated history with Andrew Wiggins, but I mean, yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, the Rockets with Olajuwon and Sampson, definitely interested to go back and see their history.
Any final thoughts on the Timberwolves, or just your thoughts on the Rockets as we go into next season and how this West looks?
Like I was mentioning before, the West is crazy. It's insane. Like we did an episode a couple weeks ago about should the Wolves want to go to the Eastern Conference, and the answer is yes, at least for now. If expansion happens, but I mean, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a dogfight, and that's what you want in the regular season, is not meaningless games towards the end. You want games that matter towards the end. It's going to be interesting to see how Kevin Durant works out for you guys. I think it's going to work out great. I just think it was a bad mix of players in Phoenix and almost a rush job to try to win a championship with new ownership coming in. And then the Wolves, I mean, we're loving it right now. We are so happy to be relevant. I know if we did this interview 10 years ago, I'd be talking like, oh man, well, Zach LaVine could be something, or we might win 30 games next year. We're hoping for that. But it's just so fun to be relevant. It's so fun to go to 2 straight Western Conference Finals. And I just want to thank you for having me on, and so you can get a little bit of a snapshot of what's going on here in Minneapolis.
Well, a couple of things. I have some Rudy interest because, like I said, a friend of mine covers the teams up there, and he's been up there for, I think, a couple decades now. Another little Rudy interest that I have is a few years ago, I was doing some production for a show called Sports Stars of Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And a guy came to town in a basketball tournament. And he said, can you go out and get this guy? And, I knew I was seeing something special because we already knew he was number 1 or 2 in the country at that time. I think he was 1 in the country maybe. And the guy that I got to shoot the highlights for and get an interview with him was Anthony Edwards. And really, it was fun to talk to him, and, just seemed like a very effervescent. You could tell he had that sort of it factor. So I'm glad to see the stuff that he's doing. So, definitely root for the Timberwolves. It's a smaller market. It's not one of the big guys. So I enjoy that. Love everything that I've heard about the people up in Minnesota. My uncle lives up there. So I've been up there one time and got a chance to sort of see Minneapolis a little bit. And that was fun. But really looking forward to the matchups this year with the 2 teams. Remind us before we go where we can find you on social media, and just plug anything that you want to beyond that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, well, on social media, you can find us on X at RWT Wolves PC. So really just type in Running with the Timberwolves and you'll be able to find me on Twitter. Also, our YouTube, just type in Running with the Timberwolves. We got some new video. I just did a new video yesterday, which actually will go over a lot of the talking points that I went over today. We do a podcast. We'll try to do it at least once a week about varying topics, to try to cover the Wolves as much as possible. We're on Spotify. Just look for Running with the Timberwolves, Apple, Google Podcasts, wherever you can find podcasts as well. And once again, I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to watch the Rockets this year. They're actually one of my favorite teams to watch last year. I love watching Sengun. He's one of my favorite players. And then, of course, the KD factor as well will be fun to watch. And another Rockets/Wolves player that I used to love watching, Kevin Martin, back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Things were pretty sparse in Minnesota, but, I mean, he could light it up with his weird shot form as well. So loved watching him. And been to Houston once. Great city. So, yeah, I'm excited for you guys as well. Should be a fun barn burner here in the Western Conference.
Well, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate the time, Gabe.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.